Alright, hello everybody. I'm gonna do the tutorial for the Skull Zombie Halloween and adding layer mask and inverting them to create an erase value. Okay, so I'm gonna duplicate my layer, right click, say duplicate layer, and I'm gonna bring in my first image, which is the skull. I go up to File, I say Place Embedded, and here's my skull. I place. I turn my opacity down right over in the Layers panel, down to about 50. I place it over the eyes. I kind of bring this down a little bit. And drag the corner down even more. So it's a little bit smaller, but I have the eyes. And that's what I want. I'm going to right click inside of this and go to warp. And this allows me to warp this a little bit. So I'm looking at her chin. I want that down there on the side. I think that's okay. I think down on this side, let's see. That kind of works. But the corner of her forehead is kind of like that. Up a little bit. There we go. I'm going to mind my eyes that they are see-through. And I like that, and hit the check mark at the top. And now I'm going to turn the opacity back up, and I'm going to go add a layer mask. Click on that, and I invert it by pressing Command I, or I can go up to Image, Adjustments, and Invert, and it does the same thing. It makes it black. Over here, my foreground background, I'm over here. I want to flip that. I can flip it here, or I can hit X on my keyboard. And now I'm going to grab a brush. I'm going to look up here, make sure I have opacity at 100. My opacity over here is 100. And I am ready to start painting. I'm going to right click, make the hardness about halfway, 50. I'm going to turn up my brush to a little over 100, and hopefully I'll start erasing. Yeah, and I'm just going to go over this kind of quickly for the tutorial. I won't spend as much time as I normally would on this. And I'm going to take all this eye out. And then I'm going to put back a little bit of the eye on the socket. Okay. Looking good. And here's the thing I wanted to show you though. On the way to blend it in a little bit. So I'm talking about over here. I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller now. And I'm going to come up and change my opacity and go down about 70, somewhere in that area. And I'm just going to go over this line here so I get a nice kind of blend into her skin. And then once I did it at 70, I'm going to turn this down even lower to like maybe 50. And do another line so it seems like it's kind of seamless, right? I don't have a real abrasive edge. And if I zoom in on that, pressing Command plus, I'm going to look at this, and maybe I'll go even one step lower to really make it go through the whole job on that. So it's kind of blended in, all right? bit here as well. Okay. All right. My next thing is to come down to the half moon and add a hue and saturation layer. And here's what we haven't done yet. I want you to right click and say create clipping mask. And I want you to invert this by pressing Command I or simply going up to image adjustments and invert. And you'll see that the keyboard shortcuts usually always follows what I do if I'm using the tabs. So Command I is right there. I didn't want to do that. I'm sorry. I wanted to right click and just create the clipping mask, which we did. You see the small arrow. I just want to invert every layer. I don't need to invert the hue and saturation. I'm sorry. I want to come up here and match up this skull with her skin. So I'm going to drag this hue up here and see how it changes that. I'm going to try to get as close to her skin color as possible. I think that's pretty close. I'm going to go to saturation and do that as well. And then lightness, same thing. Okay. I wanted to bring back a little bit of her eye, so I'm going to click on the skull layer a little bit for a minute here and just flip these so that black is in the foreground. And I need to click right on that layer mask. And I'm going to make my brush really small. And I'm going to turn the opacity back up to 50. I'm just going to click until I see her eye. Maybe just a little bit of it. That's good enough. Yeah. Okay, go back to my hue and saturation layer. I think it looks fine. So what am I going to do next? I'm going to bring in the tree bark. So I'm going to zoom back out, Command minus. That looks pretty good. I'm going to go up to File, Place Embedded. And I'm going to grab my tree bark. I'm going to place it on there. I'm going to stretch it across. And I'm going to click inside of this, right click, and say rotate 90 degrees clockwise. And then still stretch it over the whole thing. I'm going to hit the check mark at the top. I'm going to change the blend mode where it says normal to soft light. And now I'm going to do what I wanted to do on the hue and saturation. I'm going to add the layer mask and invert this, right? I want to rename this texture
TEST-TXT-U-E.
Okay, and I wanted to rename this one down here skull, but I forgot.
S-K-D-D-U-F-L.
Okay, with the texture highlighted and my layer mask active, I'm going to press Command I. Turn it black. So my tree bark's gone, and then I'm going to go to make sure I have white in the foreground, grab my brush again, and I'm going to come out and start going over a little bit around her forehead. This is up to you how much you want to do of this. I have my opacity still turned down. I'm going to turn it all the way up to 100 and then start a little bit on this side. I'm going to go down to the neck. And I'm at 100% on the opacity on the top. I'm going to turn it down a little bit, maybe down to 75. Go back over her a little bit. Definitely going to go over the eye area. Then I think I'm going to turn it down even more. Maybe like 50. And come back over in this area. Pretty much all over there. Might come over on this eye and get a little bit of that. This side as well. Yeah. Okay, I'm liking it. I'm gonna go right over her eye, make it a little bit darker. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, after I have that, I'm gonna add the blood layer. So I'm gonna go to File, File, Place Embedded. And bring in some blood. I'm going to stretch it over. And as I said, you could get your own blood from Google Images, get a different pattern. You don't have to use this one. I'm going to hit the check mark at the top. And then I'm going to add a layer mask. I'm going to press Command I. Turn it black. Now I'm going to grab a brush. So this is where it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to grab my brush and I'm going to come up to the top up here. And there's the house, there's the brush, and then just to the right of that, there's the tip. And I'm going to click on that because I want to get a specific brush. And I go to this little gear thing here, or a wheel, in the right hand corner of this. I click on this, it opens this. I'm going to go to Legacy Brushes. It's going to ask me if I want to restore it. I'm going to say yes, I do. And I'm going to go right back to where I was at, click on this again. And in this little search brushes thing, I want to type in 39.
3, 9.
And it should appear. Right down here where it says Splatter 39 pixels, I'm going to grab that. I'm going to come out to my photo now, right click, make my brush bigger, and I'm going to change my opacity up here back to 100 to start with. I'm just going to click, I'm just clicking, I'm not really dragging my brush over because I don't want to overdo it and I want to see what it looks like first before I start making a big mess. So I'm just adding a little bit of blood here and there. I'm going to come down to her neck, add some of that. And you can do whatever you want with any of these, really, these layers, and decide, you know, if it looks good, maybe it doesn't. I want to make my brush really small. I'm going to get some blood around these eyes. Darken that up. It just looks too nice. I want to make some blood in there. Maybe over here too. Make my brush bigger again. And it's really up to you. What do you decide to design? I can make my brush really big and put a big blotch over here. Some over here. Yeesh. Yeah, that's good. Maybe I'll just put some right there. Maybe I'll put some in her teeth. Yeah. That looks kind of wicked. All right. I'll get my move tool. I'm going to save it as a JPEG, file, export, export as, and say export. I'll put it in the folder that I want, and then I'll go back up and I will go to File, Save As, and save it as a PSD file. File, save as on my computer. And I'll find out where it's going. I'll put it in my Halloween folder. So on and so on. You can do what you want. All right. Thank you. Happy Halloween.